So Kellen, please consider this your china shop, and go ahead and make with it what you will. Please join me in welcoming Kellen Food Group.
On July 17th, 1945, not July, April 17th, 1945, the day dawned cold and cloudy. And I have feedback. Dave, would you go pull down number 10 on the mixer? Thanks. One of the other things I do is I'm in a recording studio, so I understand how all this stuff works. That day dawned cloudy and cold, and that was the problem for the army that was making a significant advance that day. It was the fourth day of a really important battle in northern Italy, and General Bert Hofmeister, who was the brigadier general in command of the 5th Canadian Army, had moved successfully over the previous 3 days. This day was a culmination day, and something really important. And as was his custom, Hofmeister had put his tactical headquarters way at the front, right next to the front lines. And that was a problem for his superior officers, and he'd been told repeatedly not to do that. There were a couple of reasons that he was told not to do that. One, it put his personal safety seriously in jeopardy because he was up at the front lines. And second, once in a while, communications out of those forward-placed tactical headquarters had some struggle getting back to up the chain. But he chose to do it anyway because he had a different vision. The vision that he had was the reason that it was important to put those tactical headquarters up there was that he could make immediate decisions about what needed to happen that were more effective. And in addition, the man could see him as the general in command leading him into battle, and it changed how everyone felt about him and about his army. In fact, the 5th Canadian Army became known as Hoffy's mighty maroon machine because of their maroon armbands. And that particular day was no exception after hours of intense fighting, some of which involved machine gun fire right in his tactical headquarters and mortars and all of that good stuff. They broke through the vaunted Gothic line of the German defense in northern Italy and made 85 miles of progress toward their strategic objective, which was the Zauber See. Because of that battle and other significant accomplishments, Bert Hofmeister became the most decorated Canadian military officer general in World War II. Now, Hofmeister wasn't born a leader, actually. 4 short years before that. In 1941, he'd spent 2 months at a military hospital in London with a nervous breakdown. The left side of his body was paralyzed, and the diagnosis was anxiety and stress over his worry about being an effective battlefield commander. Now, for many, that would have ended their career. His superior officer saw more potential, and he determined on his own to take powerful steps to train and do the things that were necessary. And he moved up quickly through the ranks and became a brigadier general. After the war, he went home and became the CEO of a lumber company in British Columbia. The company was very successful and he made a lot of money, but he was also known as a powerful and staunch environmentalist and a great steward of the forests under his control. Now, what can we learn about control, leadership, vision from Bert Hofmeister? Well, first of all, we learned that leadership was essential to his success. Real, visible, powerful leadership was essential to his success. We also learned that there were 3 elements in vision, sacrifice, and perseverance, all of which were repeatedly demonstrated. I want you to remember those 3 words. VSP, vision, sacrifice, and perseverance. Today I'm going to talk to you about leadership. And I am going to relate it to the Alberta, California, and Texas energy markets. I've been in this business for decades, in many jurisdictions. And the most significant omission in the electricity markets is not a market feature like capacity markets or day-ahead markets. All those things should be talked about and so forth. It's not a rule, and it's not a feature of the market design. The most significant omission is a failure of leadership. Now, I want to talk about what leadership is, but I want to do it in the context of the social contract that underpins everything that we are and do. Now, I know we have constitutions, and we have laws, and we have regulations, and we have rules, and a bunch of those here in Alberta I wrote. But they are all underpinned by a simple social contract that simply says most of the people follow most of the rules most of the time. And if that goes away, civilization as we know it just sort of disappears. Leadership is a really powerful and important piece of that social contract. I need to explain this framework so we can think about what leadership is and what it looks like. Simon Sinek, who's a great speaker, by the way, he gave a great talk. He's also a leadership mentor and runs an international leadership organization. But he gave a great talk called Why Leaders Eat Last. And he talked about this function of leadership. And I'm going to use a couple of his ideas to help this explanation. If you go back a few thousand years in leadership, back to the time of captains and kings and so forth, kings always ate first. Kings got the best meat, they got the best mate, they got the best house, they got deference and they were protected, and all of that good stuff happened back with the chiefs and kings. Pretty good deal to be a chief and a king. Except that arrangement came with another side. And the other side of that was that the chief and the king was expected to protect, provide, and to sacrifice, if necessary, for his people. So if there was a threat to his people, he led the army into battle, like Buckminster. That was the arrangement. Now today, let's fast forward a few thousand years. Here we are today, and we have that same framework partly. We have politicians, we have celebrities, we have sports figures, we have musicians, and they all get all kinds of deference. A-listers, and they get in places we can't get in, and they get red carpets, and things like that happen, right? The problem is the other side of the contract has been turned on its head. It used to be that the leader would sacrifice himself for his constituency. Today, it is regularly the case that the constituency, the leader, will sacrifice the masses to preserve their power and position. Think of financial failures. Think of how mad you got about things. It was because the contract was broken. So I want to talk specifically about two parts of this. I want to talk about it from the government side, and I want to talk about it from the side of industry. On the government side, every jurisdiction that I've worked in, government jobs are often seen as kind of cushy. The hours aren't too hard, and they don't have to, do difficult things, and their pay is reasonably good. The benefits are pretty good, the vacations are good, and if you get a little further up to the elected status, why the retirement benefits are amazing, lifetime things, and they go on forever. And we don't really care very much about that if they perform on the other side of the contract. So the other side of the government contract with respect to leadership is that they provide a stable, predictable, safe framework for us to live, run our businesses, grow up, do the things we want to do, and be happy. Instead, what we see today is politicians often worried only about the next election, short-term issues, special interests, kickbacks, and all those kinds of things that make you end up with this rage. You end up with this anger inside of you because today you might be mad at the current scandal, but it's because the contract's broken. And the terrible thing about that is even if they leave office in handcuffs, most of the time they land softly with a golden parachute.